Speaking with your host, Larry Novak. Heard every Saturday morning at 11:05. Join in by calling 508-822-1106. It's time for Larry Novak and Politically Speaking.
This is Larry Novak with Politically Speaking. According to the Boston Broadside newspapers, we are the most talked about Republican show in the South Shore. I thought we'd talk today about the Democratic debate that took place the other night. Who was the front runner? I thought what amazed me about the debate was the far left-wing proposals being articulated by the Democrats. Really, the Democratic Party is now the party of socialism. It is a party that should probably change its name from Democrat to Socialist. It is moving so far left that what I think the New York Daily News and the New York Post both said it's going to make them unelectable. Their extreme views, I mean, Medicare for all, and we're going to pay for illegal aliens in the United States and pick up that tab. Where's all this money going to come from? Extreme positions from extreme participants in that debate. People that are outside the mainstream of America discourse. They do not consider the cost. It's like when you have a budget and you go over that budget, you say, how am I going to pay for it? Then you have to look at your savings account. If that's depleted, you're going to have to raise the money somehow. So you have to look at the cost of these proposals that they are throwing out. They are not little proposals. They're huge, costly expenditures. Expenditures that will cost the American taxpayers a lot of money. Bernie Sanders, contrary to what everyone thinks, isn't even a Democrat, and he's on the stage. He's a socialist. He doesn't believe in democratic ideals. He makes no bones about it. He's a socialist, and he's going to run as a socialist. When I grew up, they were dirty words: socialist, communist. I mean, have the left completely dominated the Democratic Party? My God, is there anything left? It's our children that are going to pay for all these proposals, and how are they going to pay for it? Are they going to bankrupt the golden goose that laid the egg? Who's going to pay for all these bills as they come due? We're running huge deficits as we now see today. Where's the money going to come from? These are sky-in-the-pie ideas that don't have a meaningful, thought-out process. Yes, it's a great thing, Medicare for all, but who wants the government running anything? Just think of it. Would you want the Registry of Motor Vehicles to be running your health care? Well, it'll be an institution like that. National health insurance in England, contrary to what Senator Sanders said, was a disaster. People die waiting for transplants. People die waiting for surgery. It has to be scheduled by the bureaucrats, and they get to it when they can get to it. That isn't the United States that most people want to live in. 150 million Americans have private insurance. They just lose it all under these proposals. Not well thought out, I know of no constituency in America that wants this. It sounds good. You think, well, this might be great and it's a good thing. But when you look at the ramifications, none of it's good. Medicare costs have risen so rapidly that it's incredible. We all need coverage because you simply would bankrupt a family if you don't have it today. You can't pay for it because it's so costly. So some solution has to be worked out. But Medicare for all isn't the solution. The elderly that have paid into that plan shouldn't be deprived from benefits because more people are being put on that plan. Where is the money going to come from? Where is the beef? That's the old saying. Who's going to pay for it? I'd like to hear your opinions. I thought I was living in a foreign world when I watched that debate the other night. I didn't think any of them agreed. And the attacks on Joe Biden by the senator from California. Who is she kidding? Joe Biden is no racist. He served with he was the vice president for the first black president. To say that he's a racist and saying that his actions hurt her is unbelievable. And for the mainstream media to be playing that up is unbelievable. They should condemn her for her attacks. Joe Biden is not a racist. He ran with Barack Obama. He was out front. I mean, I don't agree with his politics. Why try to screw the guy because they're trying to bring him down? The mainstream media is just not with it anymore. They represent a view that nobody represents today. We're seeing talking about mainstream media, we're seeing the disappearance of newspapers, and you wonder if some of the disappearance is the way they argue about things. They try to impose their views on the public. And I think we've come to a part in a society that resents that. They don't want to be told what to believe. They want to believe, and they want to read the news unbiased. They just want the news reported. They don't want the opinion of the elite media telling them what to believe. Growing up, I always used to think, well, you got to believe it. It came from the media. Today, I would believe very little the media articulates. They go to sensation. I remember there was a Boyle woman when I had a problem, and she wrote horrendous stories. Never contact Maureen Boyle was her name. Never contacted me, never really talked to me. And you know what? But she was on the Democratic City Committee in New Bedford, and I was a Republican. She let her bias go through. She today works for teaches at Stonehill College. Shame on the college for hiring such a bigoted person without investigating her background. She will give the students her biased opinions. Nothing to do with her unbiased opinions. She has a dislike for Republicans, and she will continue that dislike into the classroom. Who checked her out before they hired her? She should never have been hired at Stonehill. Shame, shame, shame for Stonehill College. They're hiring a radical group of professors that have radical ideas. And you're paying a huge amount of money to send kids there. For what? To instill beliefs that the parents don't believe in their children? Into their children? I don't know. I think it should be reviewed. Maureen Boyle is bad image for Stonehill College. But going back to this, these views were never in the mainstream. Socialism is where the government runs everything from the cradle to death. They make all the decisions. Is that the type of America we want? Winston Churchill, great British statesman, defined socialism as killing the economy of a civilized nation. It would destroy the work ethic. When does the government, should they provide everything to us and tell us what to do from death to cradle? Look at Venezuela. What a great socialist economy that is. It really did well. Look at the Soviet Union. What a great socialist economy. It doesn't even exist today. We must begin to analyze these things and come to long-term solutions. I watched that debate, and the congresswoman the first day, the congresswoman from Hawaii, I thought to myself, do I live in the same country that she's living in? People struggle. Yes, they're struggling to put food on the table, they struggle to pay their bills. And these people want to tax them more. Bernie Sanders said that he's going to tax the middle class additional amounts of money. Why would anybody even consider him? Where is this money going to come from? It's going to come out of your hard-earned wages. And what do you take it away from if you're taxed at a higher rate? You have less money in your pocket. Is this the type of America that Americans want, where the government just keeps taxing? During the Second World War, the tax rate, I think, in Great Britain was like at 90%. So all you did was work for the government. Is that a good thing? I don't think so. Why would I want to work for the government all my life? I think it's all your hard-earned work, and it's going to the government. You have no disposable income. You have to worry about how you're going to pay your gas bill, your light bill, your food bill, your car insurance, your house insurance, your et cetera, et cetera. Not well conceived, not well thought out. So you have to think about these things when you're voting for these people. You heard their vision. Does anybody agree with that vision? I mean, I sat there and said, am I in another world? I don't know anything. I can't figure what they were even talking about, most of them. So I didn't agree with any of them. And I thought, they're going to move Joe Biden so far to the left that he won't be able to win a final election, which, as a Republican, that's a good thing for my party. The party is no longer in the mainstream, the Democratic Party. They're being taken over by a radical element, a radical takeover of a great political institution by people on the left. They've fought this fight for 50 years, and they've finally taken it over. If that's the vision of America that you want, you heard Senator Harris. She believes, and she's changed her position 3 times on Medicare for all. And her former opponent said she was never well prepared on the issues. She really doesn't understand the issues. That might be the case. She keeps changing her opinions like you change your clothes. People should hold her accountable. I think Joe Biden should have asked her, did I serve with the first black president, Senator? Did I serve and watch us back the first black president, Senator? Her comments were simply outrageous. She was trying to take Joe Biden down. Why? The black vote, which is the majority now, close to majority status in the Democratic Party, is almost 60% for Joe Biden. That means that she's got to cut into those totals. I thought, looking at the people that performed crazily, was that woman who's an author who talked about love. My God, is that where the Democratic Party's going? Love, love, love. We've got to love our people. I mean, these people were, some of them were off the wall. Then you had, when you looked at it, you had our congressman that didn't even, Moulton, that didn't even qualify. His vision of America is supported not by anybody. He doesn't even get 1% in the polls. He is not doing well. He doesn't have 65,000 donors. He's not going to. He didn't make the second cutoff either. So I would think that Congressman Moulton will be going back running for re-election very shortly. This campaign you're in isn't going anywhere. Your vision of America isn't something that the public really truly is buying. If you can't get the 65,000 donors, or you can't get to the 1%, then that's over. He did like to, he would have been on the debate because he would have gone after Senator Warren. He doesn't agree with her on most things. And I'm beginning to wonder if this really was to lay the groundwork for a Senate fight primary against Senator Warren, whose mainstream views are extreme. She represents no constituency in the Midwest, no constituency in the South. I think Elizabeth Warren would absolutely be destroyed in a national election. I think she wouldn't carry one state in the South. I don't think she'd be competitive in the South. I think she'd do well here in Massachusetts, maybe. Polling is not showing that they're far. I do not think she would do well in most Democratic states. I don't think she'll do well in Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, or Minnesota. Minnesota is moving to the right in recent years. It's continuing to move to the right. She doesn't represent mainstream America. And by not representing the extreme liberal viewpoint, which is not helpful. So, those were my takes on it. I just couldn't believe how far left the Democratic Party had become. No cost analysis done. They want health insurance for illegal immigrants. What about the people that lived here their whole life? Are they not entitled to benefits? Why don't we look after Americans first? And then instead of worrying about who's coming in, offering them health insurance? And let's look what happened in the last few days. Nancy Pelosi caved on the money for the border. She gave in. She provided the money, at the president's discretion. Nothing that she had put in the bill survived. So it tells me one thing. She doesn't have the clout to get anything done. Her own caucus left her in droves. They did not believe what she was articulating, a left-wing agenda, could be carried forward. They come from constituents. And let's look at that. There are 40 districts in the House of Representatives that Donald Trump carried. Those are the targeted seats for the Republican Party to retake over the House. After listening to that debate with 18 million Americans, I would say the next polling will show that America did not agree with their vision of America. I would say that the president's numbers will continue to go up. He is more attuned to what's going on in America than the Democrats. They live in la-la land, make-believe that doesn't really exist. You cannot articulate that vision and get elected in America. I was stunned that they all thought that we should pay for the health insurance of illegal immigrants coming to America. Taxpayers' money for people that have no affiliation with the United States, no affiliation living here. They come and they're treated better than the citizens of the United States that have resided here and paid into their taxes for years. Where are we going with this nonsense? Political correctness is going too far. Extreme values. These were not people that thought out. And the passing of the torch, Congressman, I can't even think of his name right now, from California. My God, extremist of the worst order. Left-wing agendas. People that nobody would ever vote for. I did not think, there's never been a head-on-head fight yet in the polling. Nor have there record's been examined and what they're articulating. When the American public focuses on what they're articulating, none of them will beat Donald Trump. It is an incredibly, it was an incredible, sad day for America. Left-wing agendas that nobody cares about. Left-wing politics that the rest of the world has rejected, the Democrats are moving towards. Policies that failed in Europe, policies that failed in South America. Now the Democrats want to bring America down by articulating the same failed policies that have failed in Europe. They think there is an obligation for government to feed them so they don't have to go out and earn a living, to feed them, clothe them, and provide money for them. One of them articulated, Mr. Yang, I think was his name, that everybody should get a check from the government for $1,000 a month. My God, who's going to be paying the taxes? Where's this money going to come from? But that's never answered. The national media is falling asleep at the switch. They don't even write about it. They know these positions are extreme and out of the mainstream. They know that they will never be implemented. They know America couldn't pay for them. America owes trillions now. Where is this additional economic money going to come from? It's like having a credit card. You max out credit card A, then you go to credit card B. You got to max out credit card B, then you go to credit card C. But guess what? When you max out credit card C, there are no more credit cards. They say the world, bad investment, America. They owe money under the sun. They owe money all over the place. We will have a new credit worthiness, and this is Larry Novak, and we're going to be taking a short break. Politically speaking, we were talking about the Democratic debate of the other night. We were talking about the extreme left that has taken over the Democratic Party, the party of socialism, the party that wants to go the socialistic way, a party that is clearly defining new goals in America, the party that has become so liberal that even long-term Democrats are leaving. They are driving out people that have worked for the Democratic Party for years because they no longer believe in those goals. I thought it was a low shot, and I know the media, the mainstream media, predicted Harris won. But I do not believe that Harris did win. She had attempted takedown on the Vice President of the United States was, in my opinion, a low shot. Joe Biden served with the first black president, and to call him a racist and to say that she was bust, and it hurt her to see him praise two former members of the Senate. He didn't praise them. He simply did his job, and when they and said they did what they believed in, and they did. But the Democratic Party has always been the party of racism. I don't know why she was so shocked with them, but she never articulated that both of those gentlemen, Eastland and the other gentleman that Biden talked about, were Democrats. She didn't bring that up. It was her takedown of them. She wanted to take him down because she is a black woman and she is not getting the black vote. And this is bothering her. But you know what? Then you examine her record, and her opponents say she was never properly prepared for any debate. She's good on the sound bites. Well, you know what? I don't know this America where we're going. These extreme liberal positions Then I looked at the net worth of all those individuals. They're all millionaires. They have nothing in common with the common people. None of them have to worry how to pay a mortgage payment. None of them have to worry how to pay a car payment. They're multi-millionaires, that whole group on the stage. So they do not relate to the average person. It was a fraud and a hoax from years that the Democratic Party believed in the average guy. They just repeated it. It's what was it? Goebbels used to say, you tell the lie long enough and the public believes it. Shame, shame, shame on the Democrats. Those are not values that are American anymore. They are not values that any major group believes in. They are values simply relating to what they think, pandering to the left of their party to get through a nomination fight. I do not believe that any of those will ever get elected president of the United States. I think, and I agree with the Daily News and the New York Post, they're going to re-elect Donald Trump. Their view of America is different than everybody else's view of America. And when she said she was when she was opposed, they're going to re-elect Donald Trump. Their view of America is different than everybody else's view of America. And when she said she was when she was bust, well, everybody was bust in those eras because they didn't live close to the schools. I mean, and she raised she went to one of the highest offices in the land, being Attorney General of California, and then going on to being a senator from California. So clearly, she didn't have major racism where they blocked her from her natural abilities to achieve. She is a driven woman. But to say that Joe Biden was a bigot is beyond belief. The last time I looked, he was the vice president for the first black American. So I mean, so something's not right here. And that is clearly defined by her approach to politics. Now, this is Larry Novak with Politically Speaking. I'd like to hear your comments on the Democratic primary. We may be reached at 508-822-1106. And this is a day that really will define America coming in the future after watching these debates. I think the more the public sees it, the less likely they are to vote Democrat. I do not believe that the public wants to be taxed at higher rates. I do not believe that the public wants some of these new policies. But you know what really is troubling is the vision that they have that illegal immigrants should be given health insurance when there are major Americans that don't have health insurance. But they believe that they should be given health insurance and shouldn't have to pay for it. There's something wrong with that vision. Whatever happened to helping the people in this country first? Evidently that no longer is important. Their vision of America is that you help the illegal immigrants before you help the veterans and the elderly. They've written off those constituencies. They believe that America should open its doors and people that work in the lower economic job ladder should be displaced so that illegal immigrants can have those jobs. They believe that America should be taxed at a much higher rate. Well, we all believe in fair taxation. We believe that corporations should pay their fair tax. But what they don't understand, and it was quite obvious the other night, It's corporations hire people and the people pay taxes. And corporations need working capital to accomplish that, to hire more people so that they can feed their families and pay their taxes. Their vision of America is different than I think the mainstream vision is. I'd like to hear your opinion on 508 822 1106. I'd like to divert off the subject matter for a few minutes and talk about local elections. Don't forget on August 6th, nomination papers for Town and Water Committee become available. They determine who will achieve statewide office, who will be nominated for statewide offices. And believe me, it's the rawest form of politics. Those offices are very important. They receive very little scrutiny, but they receive a great deal of, they can influence who's going to get elected. And if you don't like the choices of the liberal left taking over the Democratic Party in Massachusetts, you can change them. If the conservatives were organized, they would then beat them for ward and town committee positions, denying them these radical platforms to make social change. These are important. These are important for the future of the Commonwealth. These are important to save the Commonwealth from radical ideas and that really are just money pits. We need to look at some of these social ideas that are being proposed and how we're going to pay for them. Education for all is a great promise, but how do you pay for it? If you put all the private colleges out, do we just have state universities? How do you get in? You just take a test and then the selection becomes more difficult. That is what they're articulating. They want to determine who goes to college. They want to determine who is going to be the leaders of the next generation. They want to determine, they're the elite and they want to make those decisions. You're not worthy to make those decisions. They believe that you don't have the ability to analyze and make those decisions for yourself. And Senator Harris, please don't insult our intelligence again and say Joe Biden's a bigot. I mean, really. He served with Barack Obama. Evidently, maybe Barack Obama's a bigot. I don't know. Maybe that will be your next attack. Maybe, being the first African American that was nominated wasn't good enough for you. You know what? I looked at that stage. I thought also that night that the senator from New York did a terrible job. All she talked about was reproduction rights of women, which is an important issue. But there are broader issues. She wants to represent, quote, all Americans. That means there's 50% of our women, 50% of males. But she didn't talk about representing males. She only talked about representing females. She did not come across well. She came across as very poorly. She talked about women being under attack. But there is a broader issue. You're running to represent the entire country. You're running to represent men, women, children. And she had no vision once you left that one subject matter. I thought she did poorly. I did not think she did well. The congresswoman from Hawaii, who had been in the service, was a veteran. Her beliefs were simply off the wall. I mean, I couldn't understand where she was coming from. I don't know how the public felt, but I believe when you looked at all this, these positions were not helpful to America. They articulated a vision of the future of higher taxation, no jobs, government doing more, hiring more government bureaucrats, more enforcement, more government intrusion into your life. Is that the type of America you want to live with? I thought one of the questions, and I thought it was very apropos, was when they asked the mayor of South Bend about the shooting, death of a black American, and why the chief of police hadn't been fired. He had no answer. He had been busy out campaigning. He said he hasn't got to it yet. A city where the minority population is 1/4, and there's only 6% minority people on the payroll. So, I mean, that is something that should be analyzed. He was rising in the polls. And then I watched the first night, Senator Warren. She has a plan for everything, as long as it's her plan and there's no input from anybody else. Do I think the banks screw people? Of course they screw people. And do I think the banks should be, tighter control should be put on them? Of course I do. But do I think that Senator Warren's vision is the one that would take off? No, it will never pass. None of these people would explain how they're going to get things passed. They couldn't answer that question. Nothing, Nancy Pelosi couldn't get the strings attached to border funding. The majority members of the Democratic caucus, which came from mainstream districts, left them. They didn't vote in the way of the liberal left wanted. They lost an overwhelming vote in the House the other day. President Trump won on border funding. I think he got $4 billion more. It's a lot of money. And there's a lot of money as to what he has to do. The medical cost for the children. They have no beds to put them anywhere. They're in tents. I mean, it's not a good existence trying to come into the United States and being locked up. It's not a good idea for some reason that they think the streets are paved with gold. Well, believe me, the streets aren't paved with gold. Most of them have potholes when they get here. And the potholes aren't being fixed because America isn't being thought of first under the Democratic policies. The infrastructure bills the Democrats will never pass because they want to send our money overseas. They want to spend it to foreign countries, not with Americans first. Those are the visions that I walked away from that. I walked away thinking, why should somebody who does not have legal status in this country get free health care? Why should somebody with illegal status be able to get a driver's license? Why do we have to take a driver's exam then? Americans that were brought here under their way, where they're going to let the other ones flaunt the law. A rule of law, this is about changing vote totals. This is about bringing in illegal aliens to sway the election and changing the totals. They can't win with the present makeup of America. They know that. They understand that. So they're going to try to change the totals. The mainstream media is in bed with them. They're never going to articulate what's wrong with these policies. They will never bring it to a head. They will never articulate who's going to pay for them. You're going to pay. Your children are going to pay. They're going to bankrupt this country, and then they will accomplish their goal. Rip us down. That's all they've ever wanted to do is rip America apart and rip us down. When you look at them, I haven't got one call that says that they agree with the Democratic majority on that show. Everybody that called me after the show last week, after the debates, was astounded with the viewpoint that they were articulating. They weren't going to vote for them. They said, my God, I don't want illegal immigrants to be covered by health care. What about our elderly? What about the children that can't afford health insurance? Why don't we cover them instead of illegal immigrants? Why? because it's about voting totals. It's about changing the demographics of America so that they can stay in power to articulate a left-wing agenda like Venezuela. Does anyone think Venezuela functions? There is no food in the supermarkets. There's no medicine in the pharmacies. There is no medicine in the hospitals. That is what socialism did. But the elite get everything in Venezuela. That's what they want to bring. They want the left-wing elite to live in mansions, to get the best health care, and not to have to pay for anything. That's a great vision of a country. There's no justice and fairness. They just want it to be one-sided, where they get everything. Corruption. Let's look at Puerto Rico. The FBI, according to the New York Times, has launched a full-scale investigation into the Puerto Rican government, all run by Democrats. They ripped off the system when the hurricane hit. Millions have disappeared. No accountability. No, they expect indictments shortly. The grand jury has been impaneled in Puerto Rico, and they're coming out with major indictments. The mainstream media has never talked about it. The mainstream media, other than the New York Times, isn't even mentioning it. The New York Times said it is one of the largest scandals on record. The people that deserved the money never saw a dime. The politicians spent it in other ways. They spent it making sure they had generators and everything. They owe billions of dollars, and the creditors are going to get stuck with nothing in the end, unless the federal government mandates that they pay it off. 20 years of Democratic rule, and look what they did to Puerto Rico. One of the most beautiful islands in the world, they've bankrupted it. They borrowed billions with no plan to repay it. They figured they'd be out of office by the time that the note becomes due. An absolute public disgrace that we are seeing billions being spent. We are sending the FBI and the Justice Department going through all the invoices. They expect, according to the Times, major indictments in Puerto Rico. People are leaving jobs, disappearing. A typical thing, as they ripped off the system and the American taxpayer. Shame, shame on the Democrats. You don't hear Nancy Pelosi now asking for additional funds for Puerto Rico. She's become very quiet on the subject matter after she was briefed about what transpired in Puerto Rico. This is the type of leadership that they offer. When one party rules exclusively, it destroys the economy of that area. When you have multiple parties that compete, they have to be attuned to what the public wants. We need to see that multiple parties are competitive in all elections. The worst cities in Massachusetts are where one party's ruled for 50 years. My home city, the last Republican mayor was 1974. He cut the taxes. He lowered, paved all the streets. He had the best school system. They took over. Unpaved streets, broken water pipes, one-way traffic downtown, empty buildings, banks moved out, no local industry being started. That's their vision of America. That's what they thought was great for America. They allowed it to decline under their watch. They allowed a great city of champions to go down the tubes. That is the America that they have a vision for. This is Larry Novak with Politically Speaking. I'd like to hear your viewpoint. I am going to discuss in the last 10 minutes some local politics
in the city of Brockton. We have a heated mayor's race. It will be interesting to see which two candidates make the final. My prediction is it will be Jimmy Pereira and Mayor Carpenter. And I would think that the mayor will win fairly handily. It's just the way it's going. You can see that the change is not, there is no great thirst for change. Then you go out and you look at the potholes in the city, the rising crime rate, declining educational scores, unfunded pension liability. And you know what? All they build is Section 8 housing, which is what they're doing is dumping everything into one area. All the problems of Massachusetts and society into one area, hoping that they'll eventually won't have to address them in another area. That is not good politics. It is not healthy politics. It's bad. Brockton has had an image problem. There was a hotly contested school race in Ward 3. Alan Green, Blessing Rogers, and Mark DiAugustino are all running for the Ward 3 school committee seat. I would think the two finalists will probably be Mark DiAugustino and Alan Green. That will be a fight to the bitter finish. I would think that Mark will have to spend a lot of money to fend off any challenge from Mr. Green, who will be able to raise and outspend Mark. If that is the case, the vision of the dropping schools test scores will become the major issue in that ward. Then you have a city council race in that ward between Reverend Green and Dennis Ionary. I would say Dennis Ionary will continue as the ward councilor. You have at-large council seats, which most people have never heard of the people running. They're not well-known names in the city. I would say all the incumbents win re-election. Maybe with less totals, it will be interesting to see who comes in first. Councilor Rodriguez was the one who wanted pushed for Sanctuary City. And Mr. Durancourt is leaving, running for mayor, and I don't think he'll make the mayor's election. I think he's in an uphill battle. His vision of the city is different than the vision of older people. So it will be interesting to see. I think he moved very quickly. I think when you move that quickly, you cut off your ability to get elected again. And I think he is not somebody who's only been a citizen since 14, which is interesting. When I grew up, you used to vote for people who had lived in the city a long time so that they understood the problems that the city was facing. You know, I think Falwell will come in third. I think Sullivan will will come in first. Rodriguez probably second, but they'll be fairly close. Falwell third, and the fourth place could go to anybody. It's surely not, not a stellar slate of candidates. None of them have given you a reason why you'd vote for them. There's been very little activity, but the primaries are not to September, so it will pick up in August and then again in November. Furthermore, it will be a money raise. I would think anybody that spends any major amount of money could knock off any of the incumbents. None of them. I think Falwell has $600 in the bank. Ann Beauregard, the last time I looked, I didn't have any money in the bank. She's running for city council at large. Then you had Sullivan, I think he had $4,000, and Rodriguez had about $4,000. Not a lot of money, when you got to do a citywide mailing to 55,000 people. They don't have the ability, nor do they have the funds to pay for it. Those are changes that you need to look at. They affect you most drastically. Then on August 6th, again, I'm going to hit this again, you have the local parties, rebirth. Their papers come out for Ward and Town Committee. The papers come out for State Committee. They are the governing bodies of the political parties in the state. Contrary to what anybody's told, there are no rules that apply at that stage. The new political parties must adopt rules to be governed. You can change the rules at that time. If you don't agree with those rules, you simply change them at the reorganizational meeting. No political party can dictate policy till the new rules are adopted. So those are things that we will be seeing coming up in the next 6 months. Next week I am going to invite some guests back to discuss the future of politics locally. I am going to get off the national politics because I think the next debate is in end of July with the Democrats. Consider them moving further to the left. Consider them out of the mainstream. They're going to change the name Democrat to Socialist. The Democrat Socialist Party of America. And if that's what you want, higher taxation, open borders, and the government interfering with your freedoms, vote Democrat. That's what they're going to do. They are there to erode your personal liberties. They are there for bigger government. They are there for open borders. They are there for more government policies. This is Larry Novak, and we're going to have year in review.
On this day in 1917, the Ukraine proclaimed its independence from Russia. And on this day in 2007, the first generation Apple iPhone went on sale.